Welcome everyone to our world stage this afternoon or this morning or this evening, depending on where you're joining us from. My name is Chris Fair. I'm the president of Resonance and looking forward to hosting this panel on the Eventful City. Joining us today, we have three presenters. We have THERESA HOWLAND. THERESA is with the Calgary Stampede. She's fulfilled a variety of senior marketing roles and is now the Senior Vice President of Marketing, Sponsorship, and Employee Services. And she's a little bit about Calgary Stampede and the event and how this is anchoring a new district, which will lead into discussion with Kate THOMPSON. And Kate is the CEO of the Calgary Municipal Land Corporation, which has been instrumental in the redevelopment of the East Village district in downtown Calgary, as well as overseeing more than $1 billion worth of major projects, including a new central library. And we have Michael Lockwood, who is a designer and director and principal with Populous, oversees their convention center practice. He's delivered award-winning work from the heart of America and new convention centers in places like San Antonio to desert landscapes in the Middle East. Welcome everyone, glad to have you with us today.
Glad to be here, guys.
So first, I wanted to kind of start off as I think about this particular topic and thinking about meetings, convention centers, events, particularly relevant because there's probably not been one sector that's been more affected by COVID and the pandemic than meetings, conventions, and events. And I think back now, we start to see that stadiums are filling back up again, sporting facilities. It's great to see that things are kind of returning to normal. But as I kind of think back, I look about 18 months, 19 months ago, it actually wasn't the president of the United States or the prime minister making an announcement that we were shutting things down. It was actually at a sporting event when Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, on March 11th, notified everyone that they were suspending play. And that really made it real, for a lot of people. And then we kind of stepped towards that lockdown. So as you think about putting together and designing a new convention center, a new arena, you guys were already midstream in that process when the pandemic started. And I know it's been a lot of stressful nights putting together World City, but I can't imagine the stress and some of the sleepless nights you guys must have had designing and building and developing this over the last 18 months and breaking ground, in fact, during the pandemic. So looking forward to hearing more about that. But first off, maybe I might invite THERESA to talk to us a little bit about just what is the Calgary Stampede, the history of it, and how that is really kind of anchoring the vision for this new culture and entertainment district. THERESA?
Great. Thanks, Chris. Just reflecting on your opening comments there, I don't think when we shut down Stampede 2019 that we would have thought it would be 725 days before we opened the next Stampede in 2021. So just a little bit of background on what Stampede is. It's a 10-day festival. We attract about 1.3 million visitors through our park. It's a rodeo, the world's richest outdoor rodeo. It's an agriculture fair, and we can host up to 7,000 animals on our park each day. It's a midway, a food festival. It's Canada's largest music festival. And it's also a community festival. And it's a little bit hard to describe, but I think what I can say with certainty is that Calgarians have their own Stampede wardrobes, hence the hat. And they celebrate that each year, digging into the backs of their closets and dusting off their boots and hats. Businesses dress up their storefronts with Western flair, Western paintings, and communities, businesses and associations host free pancake breakfasts around our community for the 10 days. So it sounds a lot like a 10-day party, and I can tell you it is the greatest 10-day party, but we're also a year-round gathering place. In fact, outside of Stampede, we already play host to over 1,200 other events in a year, and those events contribute thousands of jobs and about 400 million in economic development to our community each year. Notably, I think it's important to note, Stampede's also a brand. So it's a 110-year-old brand and literally is a brand. So it started owned by ranchers and cattlemen to actually brand animals. And to this day, we still do that with the stock that we own. But more notably, it's actually a brand that's owned by our community. And I can kind of give an example of that. 95% of Calgarians actually believe that Stampede is an important part of our city's unique identity. So with a strong history, of delivering exceptional experiences with our annual festival, but also beyond that, it really is a brand that's really integrated and woven into our community and arguably owned by our community. Layer that on top of us owning and operating over 200 acres of land in the middle of our city. It was really a natural fit for us to continue to evolve and build out to serve our community, because that's really ultimately why we exist. We're not for profit, so we exist for the benefit of our community. So we've already in the last few years invested heavily in the area by building a new world-class agriculture arena for competitions and education programs. We've opened a performing arts and youth campus that actually includes a school and performing arts center for youth. And we turned a brownfield back house space into a beautiful 30-acre community park that is along the right along the river. And we're going to continue to do more, which you'll hear about with, we'll be opening a SAM Center, museum and attraction to share our brand and celebrate our community. And also the BMO Center expansion, which I won't chat too much about because both Kate and Michael are intimately involved in that, and I'll let them touch on it. So arguably this growth and being the anchor of this area really does allow us to showcase our brand and do what we do well, which is benefit the community by showcasing our city's hospitality. And we couldn't be more proud to be part of this development.
Great, thanks, Theresa. I can see, just looking at some of the comments in the chat here, that there's several people that have been to Stampede, so you have some fans here and other people from across Canada and other places.
Those are just people that have yet to be to Stampede.
That's right. Everyone else has yet to come.
Nice, Theresa.
Theresa will put directions for and dates for tickets or in the chat for next year. If anyone does have any questions or comments, feel free to put those in the chat, and we'll try to get those squeezed in at the end. But over to you, Kate. Can you tell us a little bit about what Calgary Municipal Land Corporation is doing, and what is this culture and entertainment district all about?
Absolutely. So I was thinking, Theresa, as you were talking about, my family always is surprised that I have at least 10 outfits to go through the 10-day festival, and it's growing. So there always is a place in Calgarians' closets for getting ready for Stampede, and I think in Michael Lockwood's closet now too. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what Calgary Municipal Land Corporation, the CMLC, gets to do, and how fortunate we are to be overseeing. It's just over 500 acres in downtown Calgary, next to two rivers, and we've been working on this project as a wholly owned subsidiary of the City of Calgary since 2007, and we've really been working to bring an urban renewal to this area that was actually blighted and not very well used. And one of the pieces of work that we did, you'll see on the left side of the screen, is the new Central Library. But another big public piece of work was activating the river. So just bringing people into the space, not only to play basketball, but to come and explore. So the area we're working on, as Theresa said, is over 200 acres in the south part of our district. And you can see the overlay here, which is actually vaguely reminiscent of the flood in 2013. So I think we need to change that color. This area actually was flooded back in the day. But this has been a really reinvention of an active area. So Theresa talked about the history of Stampede and what it brought to the area. Over 3 million visitors per year in this district. So what CMLC gets to do is pull together all the disparate projects and try to create a cohesive district. So it's about removing barriers for success. And as a wholly owned subsidiary of the City of Calgary, our partnerships and leveraging those partnerships to allow these projects to happen. We're working right now on unprecedented development in one area. We often talk about it as building an Olympic village while hosting an Olympics. If Theresa and Calgary Stampede wasn't so successful in bringing so many attractions, including a school and other pieces to the table, including an active NHL arena in the Saddle Dome, and constructing a new event center as well north of the current arena. So for CMLC, it's about aligning partnership goals and over creation at the same time, which is really a unique opportunity. Michael's going to talk about his design and our collective work on the BMO expansion. This is the convention center, but it's not just about the large rocks in the space or the islands. It's really about the spaces in between. This is a really complex transportation initiative to get people moving and into the space and redoing some of our light rail transit stations as a gateway project. And as I mentioned, the Arena Event Center, its incorporation into the district and creating how to create an overall comprehensive district that works and is delivered in pieces, but also collectively. So I'll stop sharing so that Michael can also share some of his slides specific to the BMO.
All right. Thanks, Kate.
Thanks, Kate. Go ahead, Michael.
Yep. Okay, I'll go up here. Share.
I'm curious to hear, and as you kind of look at this and the design of the convention center, obviously a lot of work was done, prior to the pandemic, and looking forward to hearing how do you kind of manage this process as you went through designing this place and breaking ground over the last 18 months.
Yeah, it was quite the process, and everybody's had their own personal stories of the last couple of years, and everyone is unique, and it's amazing what we've all been through. And leading Populus's convention center planning and design practice, we get involved in some pretty complicated projects globally. This one is probably at the top, if not above the top, as far as complications go. The map that Kate displayed there, showing all the different projects happening simultaneously in this district, let alone overlaying the 10-day festival that THERESA talked about. It's an extremely complicated proposition that we walked, I would say, right into the middle of as architects. So we came in the middle of this conversation and wanting to expand this convention center, to expand the brand of Stampede, expand the capacity for events on site year round. So the 10-day is an amazing festival. One of the best things I've ever done in my life, and I'll do it again, hopefully, when I get back up there. But understanding how to design a convention center over 500,000 square feet of gross area in the middle of all of that, just from a design point of view, is daunting, let alone how you design and build it over a series of years with all the other projects going on. So I want to talk a little bit about our process, because what was unique is we started pre-pandemic, and which is critically important, being on site, engaging with the community, engaging with the stakeholders, designing a facility like this that is on brand for Stampede, who they want to become in the future, recognizing who they've been in the past, and then where Calgary wants to go as a destination. It's absolutely essential that we engage with people. And I'll say that we did our best not to draw a single line until we experienced the 10-day festival, and that paid off, I think, tremendously, really digging in and understanding how the site transforms and how the city transforms for the 10-day is really exciting. And then we designed a solution to embrace that, and you'll see why in some of these slides. So our process, very straightforward, right? This is in-person meetings, right? Digging in and asking people who they want to be and where they want to go and what they want to become, which now we take for granted, showing up and having these great workshops on site. And mid-process, this was taken away from us. We weren't able to travel. We weren't able to meet. It seems second nature now to be online and have discussions. But at the time, the design process depends on meetings like this, where you're rolling up your sleeves and you're spending days and days at a time together to explore what's possible. And we ran into the buzzsaw of COVID like everybody did. And hey, the next meeting, by the way, guys, we're going to try out this thing called Zoom. You log in and we're going to share our screen. And it was frightening for everybody, us included. But now we look back on it, and I think what really mattered is spending time together in meetings like these, spending time together at Stampede, building those levels of trust, building those bonds, so we can really understand what people want to become, allowed us to design a facility around that core brand about the experience. So this was actually one element of the building. I'll show you other pictures, but this idea of gathering, I think this is relevant because we went through this phase, I think the whole world did, where, oh my gosh, we're never going to meet again. We're never going to go to a concert again or a sporting event again. Our business is predicated on people coming together. That's all we do. So it was something that we had to step back and really dig in to think, why do we gather? Why do humans come together? And historically, this aligns perfectly with the Stampede and the Spirit of the West. People have always gathered around fire, have gathered together to think big and broadly about the future of our world together, and especially convention centers where people are exchanging ideas and meeting together to exchange business and grow their businesses. So we actually embraced that concept of gathering around a fire, created this space called the Exchange, and I'll show you some more images of how that all links together within the building. So this building being designed, inside out, outside in. Some of the design drivers from Kate and THERESA and their teams were, the site needs to be activated 365. We want the community to be here. We want people to experience a convention like no other. This doesn't exist anywhere in Canada, which was great. It means so much to have a client that's really pushing us to do something that hasn't been done. And so we start to create some really special moments like these. Of course, referencing Stampede, I would say that Calgary and Stampede and Alberta in general, there are some tremendous design influences there. And we really wanted to embrace those, and we pushed the team to think about the future, not necessarily being tied up in the past and heritage. It's really about who we want to become and who we want to be as a city. I think we had some great alignment there. And then thinking about sense of place. So if we're given a piece of property, it's easy to fill up that property with a building. I would say that's sort of the baseline. But what we try to do is we try to create places to gather on site. And so for conventions and especially a convention center fitting within this district that Kate and her team have been developing, we want to set the building aside, stack it vertically, and leave open space that convention goers and the community can come together for really memorable moments. So we created this concept of the corral. We pushed some convention center programming out of the way, created a new gateway for people to come and pass through the building, which linked together a few of the projects that Kate mentioned, the light rail, 17th Avenue, the new event center, the new arena, and everything that's going on in the district. This building had to add a lot of square footage, then it had to be very porous at the same time. So people had to pass through it in big ways. So here's an aerial view, a rendering. You'll see 17th Avenue bending around, creating the site for the project. So lots of improvements there. The building takes on a very unique shape because we've created this pass through to get from the light rail station over to the event center, which is just north of the current Saddle Dome. So the convention center had to operate as a world-class venue, but then also allow for all these other things to happen literally on its own property. So a lot of overlap, a lot of orchestration. We came up with the term orchestrated serendipity for this project, which means when you go to a convention or you go to a game, you come together because something might happen, something special might happen. Some of you guys are in New York right now and you just bump into each other in the lobby, and those are the moments that we create together. That's why humans do things like this. So we wanted to create those moments, and we came up with that term orchestrated serendipity as a way to embrace that. And then how the building stitches together the downtown core and then the Stampede Park itself. So this is what it might look like during the Stampede Festival. Lots and lots of folks integrating in and around the building, lots of things to do on site. And the building really becomes this warm embrace of the event itself and becomes a backdrop for folks to have a really amazing time. Kate showed this view. This is the ballroom, the elevated ballroom looking out to the west. The idea of programming the site. So Own the Winter was one of the concepts, and how can we program the open space, the corral space with ice skating, a Christmas tree, things like that, to bring the community onto the grounds of the convention center is really important for the entire team. And this is the Exchange. So not only the fireplace about where people gather, but this is a place where everybody comes back to again and again throughout the conference. You'll see on the right-hand side of the screen, there's a bar. Coffee in the morning, drinks in the afternoon, or vice versa, depending on how you're going with your conference, have drinks in the morning. And then to the left, this is a grandstand. But again, all the meeting rooms and ballrooms and breakout spaces are all oriented around this space. Natural light, gathering around a fire. This is the future of convention centers. This is where people want to come to experience each other. They'll get their content in a meeting room, but they'll come back to a space like this to really connect at a human level. Here's another view of that space, multi-level, really large skylight. We believe it's the largest fireplace ever in Alberta. We're going to go for a Guinness record there, but really a special place for people to come together to make memories. Here are some pre-function spaces. So going from the Exchange up to the ballroom, the new grand ballroom, over 50,000 square feet on axis with the Canadian Rockies. Looking out this window, again, one of the special things about Calgary is you're at the footsteps of the Rockies. So being in this room and even being on stage, you'll have a view of the downtown, you'll have a view of the Canadian Rockies and the sunset, a really special moment. So we wanted that ballroom to be oriented around what it means to meet and come together in a place like Calgary. And that's it. So I'll stop sharing, and Chris will open up to some questions. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Michael. It looks fantastic. It's pretty exciting to see something like that coming to life. As you think about, kind of question to all of you really, as you look at going through this process, and obviously there was a vision and years of work and planning prior to COVID-19 and the onset of the pandemic. What's your view about the future of meetings and events? Is everything going to go back just to the way it was in 2019? Are we going to be more inclined to go to events because we've been apart so long? I mean, maybe start with you, THERESA, just as what's your kind of take or vision on what the future of meetings and events looks like?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I'll actually touch on what we did this year. So as I mentioned, after 725 days of without a Stampede and our annual festival, which typically attracts about 1.3 million, we did open the doors and we did play host to Canada's first major event on July 7th this year. And we had about half the people come. So, we basically implemented a number of measures and our own safety protocols to help support the level of comfort as well as the safe operations. And we saw it made a difference. We know that guests, said that because of the measures that were implemented, about 43% of them said that made a difference to why they felt comfortable coming. We were in an interesting circumstance where all restrictions related to COVID had lifted just 1 week prior to our event, but we did maintain our own measures to just go above and beyond and create that safe environment and that comfort. And so I think ultimately, and interestingly enough, some of the measures we put in place amid an additional our government has actually now has implemented our own forms of that. So we had the first vaccine passport in Canada. 60,000 people provided proof of vaccine or rapid testing in order to enter what we call National North, which is our shockingly live country music festival venue and bar. And those people, are now doing that just to go to a restaurant or go to a gym in our city. So I think, really just setting the standard and aligning to what guests' expectations are probably the most important. And I think we're trying to figure out what that looks like too into the future in 2022 and beyond, and to 2023 and 2024 when we start to activate the space that Michael showed. It is really understanding that and delivering above and beyond those expectations.
Yeah, certainly you're definitely a trailblazer, fittingly, I guess, when it comes to activating meetings and events, this summer, and others have learned from that experience. Kate, as you think about the Culture and Entertainment District, overall on this, massive project and undertaking, what does that mean to Calgary, as a city, and what's the motivation for you that was kind of really driving this vision?
Well, I think one of the original motivators, we started working on the master plan for this area in 2017 and looked at what's the potential, what do we already have, what do we need to amplify, and where do we go from here? So that work was started, if we use COVID as our kind of reference point before COVID, pre-COVID, and it will carry on long after. But one of the motivators was we have this asset, we have this area, over 200 acres right near the Elbow River in Calgary, that is, largely underutilized and largely unconnected. So like what we did in East Village to the north of this area, reconnecting it to the urban grid, allowing people to see what the potential is and bringing in partnerships. But I think one of the motivators too is overall Calgary has over 30% vacancy in our downtown office space. So it's going through transition economy in terms of heavily reliant on oil and gas, and now what's the next step, and where do we go from here? And so I think Calgarians have, for the last 3 or 4 years, been trying to grapple with that question of the downtown vacancy and what does amenity look like for downtown. And I think this is part of it, though not thought of as traditional downtown Calgary. It's all a part of a growing Calgary and a kind of an evolving Calgary, and what can it be? So they're all interconnected. I think when you walk through a great city, you don't really know when you're going from one district to another. There's generally a little different feel, and that'll be great to feel in Calgary. But the downtown and East Village and the Culture and Entertainment District are all part of a successful Calgary.
Michael, I'm curious from your perspective as to being from outside of Calgary, as you've obviously been thinking about meetings and events and probably had some sleepless nights through in March and April and wondering, where is this going to go? But right now we're at a virtual event. We're not meeting in person. We're talking about working remotely more. I mean, what does that mean for meetings and events in your view? Are there less people getting together or more? Or is it just kind of somewhere in between?
I think, we're in this transition period right now. We believe people will come back together. A personal view is that there's only so much you can do online. We need space as humans to create, and that sometimes means silence and being together as humans. That's why we talk about gathering so much. That's where great things happen. I think that we're going through this stage right now, of course, being very sensitive to the safety of humans gathering. And we've done a lot of venue readiness plans, we call them, the very simple things that we need to do to remain safe. I think we've gone through that. THERESA and their team, they've proven out that we can have these events. You'll see that, stadiums are starting to fill up again. But the thing that's unique about a convention center is that it's part of an ecosystem that has to do with transportation, hospitality, food and beverage, and the venue itself. So I think that's why the convention and meetings industry was hit so hard, was because travel was restricted. Hotels had to go through their own protocols. Restaurants were shuttered as well. So that whole thing came apart. And for me, it made people realize how interdependent all of these things really are, which is special. And I think as people start to come together, they realize that we can overcome this. This is temporary. There are ways around this. We need to be sensitive to current conditions. But we need to appreciate and understand that ecosystem. And I think it's actually shown a light back on the importance of the planning that Kate was talking about. Everything really does depend on something else to be a great experience. So I'm optimistic that people have realized that, gosh, it's really great to be together. Can we add technology to live events to have more people? Absolutely. So I think the future is about, if you're there live, it's an amazing experience. If you can't make it, you can still attend virtually. And the marriage of that real world and technological world, I'm hoping actually produces more attendees than less. That's my hopeful view of the future.
Yeah, I think I'm optimistic as well. And we had a session on the London stage this morning talking about central business districts and saying we're just guessing at what percentage of people come back to the office, but it's probably less than it was pre-pandemic. And I'm of the view that is probably true, but we can't both go to the office less and gather less. That actually the corollary of going to the office less is more meetings and gatherings in person and events and festivals, because we're a social species and something's going to have to replace that contact that we might have at the office. Again, purely speculating, but I think both of these things can't both be true, that we will go to meetings, events, and festivals less, and we will go to the office less, and we're all just going to shutter more at home for the rest of our lives. I don't think anybody would agree with that point of view. And these kinds of gathering places really are probably the opportunity that we will see more demand for, in the future. I mean, I'll maybe kind of leave Kate last word just in terms of what is going to happen in terms of the timeline for the development of this. When we come to Stampede or want to come to a meeting and convention, when does this district start to come to life?
Well, it's interesting. Looking at the BMO project specifically for the district, it's kind of the worst kept secret, but yet still under the radar. So it's how do you hide 580 plus square feet of new space? Largely, a lot of people haven't seen what's coming. And I think this year is going to be a really big eye opener. Not only have we just opened one of our big roads into the area, or pedestrian ability to walk in on the west side of Stampede Park along the LRT, but you're going to start seeing all the steel coming up, and I think then people are going to see the scale of what Michael and team and the Calgary Stampede have been pulling together, and that is going to be, I mean, even this summer I saw a family looking at the rendering on one of the renderings outside on the fence, the site construction fence, and they're like, oh really, this is going here? But wait till you see it built. And I think that you're going to see construction layered with people all around over the next 3+ years. And the area that we walk around in today and that we see today is not going to look at all like the area in 3 years. And it's really hard for humans to kind of comprehend that scale change and that movement change and how you're going to be redirected. It will feel quite different, staggeringly different in a few years. And yeah, it's coming. It's actually well underway.
Well, it's exciting to see, and I think it's a real opportunity as you think about Calgary as a city to become that gathering place in the West that for not just Calgary Stampede, but of course to that and many other festivals, events, business events, meetings, conferences. Can't wait till we have that opportunity to come and experience it. I know there's a couple of questions we didn't get to in thinking about, the role of esports and technology and how you kind of plan that in. Move over to a Calgary Municipal Land Corporation lounge. If anybody wants to join us, we're going to continue the conversation over there. You can go up to the lounge tab at the top of your menu on the World City site, and then you'll see Calgary Municipal Land Corporation lounge. Grab a seat and join us over there if you'd like to say hi and talk about some of these other points for a few minutes as we round up the day. Thanks so much, Kate. Thanks, Theresa. Thanks, Michael. And I'll see you over in the Calgary Municipal Land Corporation lounge in a minute.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Bye-bye.